This OBS has a brand new paint job and I'm gonna sand it all off. Why? Why? Hey guys, thanks for watching. We're back on Derek's OBS truck, his Super Sport clone, and we're calling it Zed Sled with a pickup bed. Why do we call it Zed Sled with a pickup bed? Because Zed Sled had a nice flat paint job on it. And it was a good show driver. That's kind of a category that I've invented, at least in my mind, and that's what Derek wanted on this truck. So we did some horse trading, and I'm going to put a paint job on him. That's not to diminish the paint job that's on it. It's pretty good, but we want depth, we want reflection, we want refraction, and that doesn't happen coming from the spray gun. It happens underneath. So what I'm going to show you today is how to create that super flat canvas in which to put your paint materials on to make the paint job look flat and super shiny and really glossy. The paint is the lens into the bodywork. So that's what we're doing today. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. And yeah, and by the way, all of these techniques I'm showing are in Paintucation videos, streaming, DVD, whatever, or the online Paintucation University courses. So if you want to step up your skills, check out Paintucation.com. So before we get into this, we're going to do a couple of different things here. Before we get into it, and we had some questions, so I'm going to answer a couple of questions that you guys have sent in, and I love it. I love the fact that you guys send questions in. Hopefully I can answer them. I don't know everything, but what I know really well. So this is a couple of them that I thought were kind of relative to this truck. So this is from Kevin Ruse, or at Kevin _RUZ. Are you eventually going to do a video, or have you, on sprayable fillers, Clausen, Slick Sand, G2, and its purposes? So yeah, actually I use, I think it's G2 on the Paint Your Own Truck video. It's a streaming video, but that's what we're going to use on this. We're going to use a high build polyester, and here's why. Our process here is we're going to flatten the truck out. We're going to put a high build primer on and we're going to block it out. It's nothing new. I didn't invent these techniques. That's what has to happen. We've got to block out the surface. So if you use a urethane, that's what happens when you overstack a urethane. It tears itself apart because it cannot tolerate massive film thickness. A polyester will in fact tolerate massive film thickness. Now this is just an overmix puck, but it didn't shrink and it didn't crack and it didn't tear itself apart. So that's the strategy here. We talk about paint strategy all the time at Paintucation, and the strategy is to flatten it out, put a product on that you can further flatten it, refine it, mill it down. Body guys are human milling machines if we choose to do it properly. So we're going to mill this down, flatten it out, and then spray the paint out, and then again, another process of milling, surface correction, sanding and polishing to make it even flatter. So there's nothing new under the sun. What we're going to show you are these techniques. I'm going to do one more question. I promise you we're going to get to work. So, project strategy, that's right in line with what I was just saying. So at Nate V Texan 17, I noticed that some of your videos that you have at least a couple of mid-70s Camaros stored at the shop. Yes, we do. I've got a 76 that I've had for decades in decent shape body-wise, but it needs a lot of love. Well, they all need a lot of love. Do you have any recommendations for a cool paint scheme and color? And also, how can I make those not-so-pretty mid-70s bumpers look more integrated into the body to give the car a slicker look? I really love your locking hoods. Okay, that's the arrow catch, hood catches. So I watched a video many years ago. It was John Kosmowski, House of Color, and he did a candy brandy wine three-stage paint job on a, I believe it was a 76 Camaro. And not only did the paint job, it's John Kosmowski. Come on, man, he invented House of Color. And he's a brilliant technician, and he's a color scientist, and all these things. And the color combination that he put on that car was super deep. And to Nate's question, he took those blocky aluminum bumpers, bodyworked them, and painted them body color. So if I'm going to keep my blocky bumpers on my late second-gen Camaros, and I believe those years were 74, 5, 6, and 7. 78 is when they went to the urethane bumpers. So there's 4 years in there, I believe. You guys can bust me if I'm wrong, and I know you will. I believe there's 4 years in there with the big blocky bumpers. And my 74, the garbage Camaro, yeah, it had those, not anymore. So yeah, that's what I do. I paint in body color. So thanks for the question. But one more on body work. This is from at Aaron Belknap. Greetings, KT. Greetings, Aaron. Longtime fan, glad to find your channel. The VGG truck turned out awesome. Always, we're talking about the F100, the giveaway truck that me and Derek painted down here, and it was a lot of fun. I think I'm still recovering from that. Anyways, I've got a 64 Chevy C10 years ago, backed into a tree, and the rear wraparound bumper bolted to the rear lower skirt, rolled up and sheared the bolts off the bumper. Owie, that was a hard hit. On the back of the skirts have a decent crease. I used a broom handle to push the dents out, but there's a crease where the dents are. Can I use a hammer and dolly to flatten them? If you need pictures, I can provide. You're going to need, that's super strong sheet metal on those trucks. You're going to need access to the back side of it, and you're going to need a hammer and dolly set, and sometimes it's hard to work into those blind areas. But I have a tool that I need to show you. Stay there, I'll be right back. All right, this is called a bullseye pick. You can see what it does. My friend Ron Covell introduced me to this tool. There's a handle here, and it's a rod on a pivot. You can see right there, look real close. You can see there's a target, right? So when the action comes up, it's a pick end, and it goes right into the target. This is for blind panels. This is a bullseye pick for getting into areas that you could actually get this lower piece in. For instance, like this down here. If I had a dent right there, and it's hard to get into with the hammer, is super tight, I line up my little relief here, and you can see that hammer action. Watch on this level. So if I'm understanding your question properly, this is a way to get into the back side of that panel to use literally a hammer on and a hammer off dolly technique at the same time, and use this tool. Get back into the back of it. However, boy, that's loud. Use ear protection, use hand protection, use some gloves that'll absorb some of the energy, and don't get your finger in the way of that either. So hopefully that answers your question, and if not, maybe I introduced you to a cool tool that you can use for something else. If you remember, because it kind of PO'd a few people, I buzzed down this spot here, but it was to get a glimpse into what the surface is. Not only to see how many layers, and we saw it, there's only one paint job over top of the original, but also to see the quality of the feathered edge, to see if we have good adhesion, and we do. So that shows me that I can block this down. We got one paint job over the original, and we can block this down, prime it, block it again, and boy, it's going to be super slick. We've got my little squiggly lines here. That's what I call my dent map. That's showing me the lows and highs that I need to mill down. Again, we're milling this down, priming it, going to block it again, but we got to get belt moldings off. And this right here, we got to do a re-repair on that filler. The hood right here, it's misaligned. If I'm blocking, I want to block over these panel gaps. I want to get the transitions nice because it really matters, especially on black. It's a little low at the back here too. So we're going to shim it up. We're going to get the panel fitting like it should. The grill, it's raw plastic. So there's no blocking to do on that. It does need to be prepped with an adhesion promoter and the proper sealer before we spray it, but I don't want to block into it because it's going to scratch the fire out of it, and I don't want to ruin it. So again, there's a little bit of a low spot right there. I'm going to take the antenna and the antenna nut off. Again, belt moldings here, a few little pop knots here and there, and you'll notice the door handles are already gone. My buddy Chris Slee from Kiwi Classics and Customs came, and we were doing a paint project up in the booth, and while I was spraying, he was just killing time. So he came down here, he did me a huge solid because I hate taking these handles out. If you guys have ever done these, you know what a booger bear they are. But Chris, even though you need tiny doll hands to get in and release the clips, Chris has got dog-sized mitts, and, and he was able to show me how he got those things out. So check this out. What'd you do? You broke it.
It fell off. Yeah, managed to get it out. They're a little bit of a trick to do.
Yeah, they're persnickety. So what'd you have to do to get it out?
Basically, you got a bolt comes in through the back from through here, and then one in through the door panel, and then there's a little release clip on the lock mechanism, which that basically you've got to reach in there, get that out, lift this little tab up, slide it up, and then the rod will just come out. So that releases that, which gives you a little more room to work. And then you just got to get this out a little bit, reach in here, open this clip up, and it'll just... So yeah, you definitely need one of those.
Yeah, I'm stoked that you did that because those make me cry. They make me really, really sad.
What's nice is the way they're made. When you're going back in, all you have to do is push it through. You don't have to put it in and slide the clip in.
Yeah.
Like some vehicles do, but that is just a push through. Once you push that through, it locked in.
Yeah.
Put the bolts back in.
Cool.
Away you go.
Thanks, man.
No worries.
So you're welcome. I learned from Chris. I really appreciate that. So there's some techniques on how to release these clips. We've got a bed cover on here. I don't want sanding dust all over this. So we're going to pull the bed cover off, which I've already released the clips on the inside. And I'm really sorry, Derek. The stickers got to go. There's no way to prep around these stickers. It's worth removing them and buying them again, which I guess I'm going to have to do, to be able to prep properly. These stickers are going to look way better on a super flat panel than they would if I worked around them. So the only other thing that we're going to do is pull off this bezel right here. That's super easy to do, except for when it's not. Anyway, and I might paint these glossy black. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of a cool look. And if you do plastic properly, it'll stick. Oh. Oh. Ah! Ah! So first things first on this hood. I've got to bring it forward on both sides. It's pretty simple. You can't adjust everything all at once. You got to start with one plane of adjustment, which is back and forth. And in that, you can get the gaps. Anyway, so we're gonna, I believe that's a 13 mil. I'm just gonna adjust one side at a time, and we'll sneak up on it and get it adjusted to where it's perfect fit on the fenders. I'm not taking the bolts out. I'm just loosening them off. I can move that hood. By the way, if you hear the giant thing noise in the background that sounds squeaky, it's my air conditioner, and it's loud, but it's hot, and I'm ruined. When I was back in body shops, we didn't have air-conditioned shops. You guys that are collision repair monkeys, you know there's no such thing as an air-conditioned collision shop. But TV studios are air-conditioned, so that's where my world has been. Okay, you see that? I just moved that about 1/8 of an inch. All right, so what we're gonna do now is just slightly snug that guy down, just enough to hold it. Now we're gonna close the hood. looking at this right here. And it came forward, but not enough. It still sticks out a little bit more. So I'm going to give it a little bit more love and bring it this way a little bit more. What happens when you adjust one side is that it affects the other side. So just be aware of that. Just make sure that you're not crunching your corners in or something like that. I think that's about all it's got. So if it won't cooperate, I might have to slaughter gate. That's better. All right, now we're going to try the other side. All right, see, look what it did here. It closed up this gap because the whole thing went eh. So that's what I was talking about. You can bruise a brand new paint job and break your own heart by doing stuff like that. So I'm going to now try and adjust this backside. It moved. Move, Jerry. Cracked myself up. All right, so that opened up my gap. I'm kind of digging that. It's still a little bit tight there, but I can move this fender like that. Still not super happy with that, but it's better than it was. What I'm looking at now is this panel gap. See if it wows a little bit. It's really even here, really even here, really even here, and it gets a little bit wider there. I'm not sure if I can adjust that in. I don't think I can, but I'm just looking for an opportunity to bring this back. And I don't think I'm going to be able to. Got an idea. Yep. All right, just a little love tap. That's all it needed. Now, what I'm looking at are the gaps from the hood to the fender. On that side is good. On this side is good. But it's a little tight right in there. So what I'm going to do is bring that I'm hoping I can get away with just this adjustment here. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Let's see if this will move. Ah, it moved. It moved. I think some nice button head fasteners would look good inside here. Hard no, Davey. Hard no. All right. Plan B. what I'm hoping is that I can get to, there's another bolt down here, loosen this guy off, and see if I can pull that fender this way more without having to apply brute force, which I'm not afraid of, but I'd rather ask it nicely to move where I want it to move rather than just absolutely beat it into submission. Where are we at? Right here. All right, so that's about the amount of adjustment that I need. But if you look right here, you will see that the hole won't allow it. So I've got to flare that hole out just a taste, just a little bit, and then clamp it down. That should give me the adjustment that I need, and Bob will be my uncle. Drink. So that's given me another, at least 1/8 of an inch of adjustment room. Now we'll get in here with my pry bar. I'm trying to bruise this paint. This paint's super nice in here. I don't want to mess it up. All right, so now we can see, you can see that fender moving. So I'm going to close it. I'm sorry, open it. While I've got it under tension, snug it. Now, let's see what happened. So it did open it up, and it's nice and even until there. See how it pinches right there? I got a solution for that. Now we got a gap. The only other thing I'm going to adjust up here is I'm going to bring the hood up just with the adjuster, and see what that does? It just flushes everything right up. So that's just a thumb screw on the radiator support. I'm going to do that on both sides. Which is this guy right here. You can see it's already adjusted all the way down. This is going to compress, so I'm going to overcompensate, so it's to do, I suppose, another thread right about there. Go to the other side, do the same thing. Suppose another thread like that. Let's check it out. Even just a little bit more. But boy, that's in the ballpark. Yeah, I'm going to adjust that up a little bit more on both sides. And I've also got adjustment right here. I can shim. There's no adjustment here, it's just a striker. But this can come up and lift up the whole works if I need to fine tune it after blocking. But right there, okay, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. And I'm happy with this also. All right, so now the only other thing that I'm going to do is kick up the back of this hood, actually on both sides. And there's something I learned from Walt at AMD about this. And Walt, you know who you are, buddy. I appreciate you. So these are miscellaneous body shims. You've got different shapes, different thicknesses. It's an 1/8 of an inch, there's a 1/16. So what we're going to do is put shims underneath the rear bolt. So what that's going to do is pivot off of this one. I don't lose my alignment, but I open up the gap between the hinge and the hood in here. You can't see it, but I can point at it. And so that lifts it up in the back in kind of a lever action. So how many shims do we need to lift it up? I suppose I could just guess at it and test fit back and forth. Here's a better way to figure this out. Can't work with the gloves on sometimes. So what I do is take the shim that I think is going to compensate and I put it on top. And oh look, that's flush. So guess what? We need an 1/8 inch shim on the back side of there. Super easy. You're welcome. There's our shim for that side. We're going to go to the other side and take a look. Nope, not enough. Not quite enough. Enough. Look at that. Thank you, Mr. Wald. All right, so this right here is super flush and it looks good. So I'm happy with that adjustment. Let's look at the other side. Yep, bingo. Bingo. All right then. So we got some disassembly to do. We're going to pull the grill and just walk around and just strip it all down just a little bit more. I don't want to damage any of these parts. They're already brand new parts, it looks like. I don't want to buy them again. So yeah, we can protect a lot of stuff with masking tape, but it's just better to just get rid of it. Not get rid of it, but take it off the truck. Don't take me literally. Well, good. Oh, it's a Phillips. I'll just set that right there. At least it's an old, stripped out Phillips. Oh, okay. It's okay to drop things as long as you can hit the floor. Can't fall off the floor. Fasteners can sure get hung up in little recesses. There you are, you thing. You will come off. Go to the other side. I bet you didn't think I had any power tools, did you? now I can address this goofy thing and see why it's all floppy, floppy on the bottom. I can fix that. Heck yeah, man. I got a hot glue gun. I can fix that. We'll get rid of that. Alrighty then. Put this off to the El Sido. Well, that's nice. There we go. Only broke off one of the tabs. Sorry, Derek. Right there, I can use my Polyvance plastic welder and fix that sucker. And I'm gonna fix it. All right, to get these decals off, or decals, depending on where you're born and raised, did a nice effective job. I started out using a heat gun, thinking I could soften the glue and peel them right off. No, all it did was get it hot, separated the glue from the adhesive, and burned my fingertips. So then I just started trying to peel them off with my thumbnail, and no, all it did was just make my hands cramp. So I got my trusty eraser wheel. You guys haven't seen these, chucks up into a drill. You can get these anywhere. I got this one at the F100 Nationals a month or so ago when I was up there with the AMD guys. And you know, the giant swap meet tables that you see and all the different little tools and stuff like this, this was a couple of bucks. You can get these anywhere. And it just rolls the adhesive and the sticker off. It left a little bit behind, so I used a brake parts cleaner. Obviously in a well-ventilated area, and it got the rest of the glue off, and there we go. So as I'm looking this panel over, I'm not even really looking at the panel, I'm looking at the reflection. I'm seeing my shop door reflection, I'm seeing a line of fluorescent lights, and I'm gauging the surface of the panel. You can only do that through reflection. When I look at the panel right here, boy, it looks nice and shiny and flat and straight, but it's not, at least not to the level that I want to take this to have a super flat paint job. So you have to use the power of reflection. Now I've done under different light sources, my little code here, little squigglies mean there's a weird spot there, there's a low spot here, there's a little dent there, little dent there, and all kinds of stuff. So all these shapes on the surface. This right here gives a little clue as to what I am looking at. I've blocked this with a pretty aggressive grit, and you can see low spots. Now you couldn't see that with the reflection, but you can see it when you start to expose it. So it's an interesting philosophy. Now this right here, this is rubber marbles on the bottom of the panel, and I have no idea how those got there. they'll sand off. Anyway, to make a flat panel, you have to use a flat block. To create a flat surface, you have to use another flat surface and have sandpaper do the abrasive. There's no other way to it. So let's look at what we're going to use to actually block this truck out. These are some of the sanding blocks I'm going to use. These are Styline Corporation soft sanders. The reason I like these is because they've got a cross section of a bunch of different shapes. This is really close to the little cove down at the lower third of the panel all the way down the truck. And this is one of those sanders, sorry Dave, that I have modified to fit inside the ribs of a pickup bed. So I like these for the purpose of the shapes that are engineered into them. So it's a great product, but it's not what I'm going to use on the top surfaces. I'm going to use these blocks, which are a hard plastic face. These two here, they're super hard. They don't give at all. These, in fact, are acrylic. Again, we want to make a flat surface. We have to use a flat surface to make that. That's going to give us that high quality of reflection. And so what we're going to do is block down with the flat blocks and the pretty, and you might think to yourself, well, the same grit sandpaper on a different block, it's the sandpaper that does the work. But the same grit, it's not the sandpaper that creates the finish. It's a subtle difference, but it's a big difference in the result. So anyway, hard surface, acrylic blocks, that's my go-to. There's a bunch of people that have made these. I love the spirit of the entrepreneur in America. God bless America. You can do anything you want to. A bunch of companies have sprung up, like Next Level Blocks, making these kits and these blocks. And Jason Kilmer does these blocks on his own for his high-end surface correction. But the first guy that I ever saw use an acrylic block was my buddy Randy Borcherding, who made his own. He got a piece of acrylic, did duct tape, sort of a fin on the back of it, and it works extremely well. So yeah, nothing new under the sun, but I like the fact that there's a bunch of small businesses coming up making really good tools like this for doing exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go pretty aggressive on this. I'm going to go 180 grit sandpaper. That's pretty dang aggressive. That's way too aggressive for paint prep. We're not prepping for paint. We're prepping for a super high build primer filler. Huh? 180 is about right for this. 180 to 220 according to TDS sheet. So we're going to use 180 grit. We're going to use the Superflex paper that comes from Styline, and I'm just going to load up a couple of different blocks with 180, and I'll show you a little bit about what I'm doing. This sandpaper is a little bit closer to emery cloth than it is the paper-backed Body Shop sandpaper. And it allows me to be really precise with it. It lasts a really long time too. This paper is good. This is Indasa. This is 180 as well. All right, so here's a quick demo of what I'm doing. Now, I've got a little wowza line right here. The paint's been cleaned off already. Otherwise, I would run this thing through a car wash, but the paint is pretty clean. So what I'm doing, I'm placing the surface of the block onto the panel. And I'm going to use an X pattern and really light pressure. I don't want to push hard enough to move the sheet metal. Late model sheet metal, it gets moving around pretty dang quick. So real quick right here. Now we can read the surface. High spot, low spot, high spot, low spot, high spot, low spot, high spot, low spot, low spot, high spot, high spot, low spot, high spot, low spot, high spot, low spot in here. This is not a criticism of the last guy that was here before me. This is an observation of what this surface looked like. You guys see this truck in the video. It looks fantastic. It's a brand new black paint job. We're going to make it better. That's what this is about. It's about how to make it better. The way we make it better is to create a flatter surface in which to give a better reflection. So, what I'm going to do is use this flat block on all of these areas in here. This is the big flat part of this panel. I'll use it again on these flats here. And I'll use it again on this flat surface here. And we'll read the surface. We'll see what the heck happens. And I'm going to block enough to where I can tell whether I can straighten it out in a paint job to reprime, or whether I'm going to need to use any filler on this in order to flatten it out and give a surface underneath my high build primer. So here we go. You might be asking yourself, the truck is black. Why is Kevin's sanding dust white? Those of you that know, somebody can put a comment down in there, in the thing below. But spoiler alert, that's what clear coat looks like when you sand it. And always tell a clear-coated paint job by the color of the sanding dust. If it's white in spite of the color underneath it, you know it's a clear. Right here, it's time for me to change weapons because the size of my block isn't allowing me to surface this down without doing damage here. So I'm going to get a slightly shorter block and hit this lower part. I've still got a little bit of work to do up here. Yeah, my paper's starting to load up. Time to change the paper. So in theory, when these low spots don't show up, the surface is flat. In theory. So it didn't take a lot of work, but this zone right in here is pretty okay. A little bit more to do here, then I'm going to change blocks. All right, change blocks. Now this is weird because this caves in just a little bit, so I'll cross block this sort of a bit more. See, I've changed directions of the block. Typically I keep it parallel to the panel, but right here, since it scoops just a taste, we're going to roll with it. Still a little bit. All right, we see low right there. Shiny right there. Shiny right there. Keep working, Kevin. Keep working. All right, so far we've blocked out some flat places and the panel is talking to me. So one of the things that you saw me do is go over it with this. This is a dual action sander. This is a sanding pad. There's zero grit for this. This is in my vacuum sander, and what this does is it sucks up all the dust from the panel without blowing it out into the air, and it doesn't abrade anything. It won't sand anything. It just takes the dust off. So it's a cool tool that I found out about from a good buddy of mine that's big into collision repair. But what it does is it allows me to look at the panel to see exactly where we've blocked. So let's take a look. Right here, the way this panel is stamped, it curves in here all the way around the gas filler door, right? Gas filler door, if I want that stupid flat, I will probably have to take it off of there and block it on a different surface. That's fine. This is a show driver, it's not a show truck. So I'll probably be fine blocking that a little bit more. Yeah, I'll probably take that off and prime it and reblock it again, but I'm not going to worry about making this glass flat and file fit right here. So again, that's a complex shape talking back to me. Right in here, this all feels pretty darn good. Right here, I've feathered out a little bit more. And just so you know, when you're feathering, a good gauge of the fact that you don't have a ridge, that you're feathered down into the next layer, is that if you've got about 3/4 of an inch of the color exposed, that's my understanding of, I've got 3/4 of an inch here, 1/2 inch here, whatever, I'm not quite flat there, 3/4 of an inch-ish. That tells me, because of the width of each layer, that it's pretty darn flat. Right here, I just lightly went over this, but long enough to show me some things. Bare metal right there. Bare metal right there. Still super shiny paint right there. I'm down to metal right there. So what, maybe that's a primer. Anyway, my point is this. When I've got my sanding block, you see me do that crosshatch pattern, I'm not riding those waves. I'm literally blocking and milling those waves, and I'm exposing the low spots. So, the longer your block, the flatter your panel, within reason. The other thing is this: don't sand with the sanding block, block with the sanding block. Because if I was to use the toe of this long block, this thing's crazy, and sand in here, sure, I can smooth that out. I can put sand scratches in there and get it ready for primer, but I'm not going to show that it's still a low spot. Only by proper blocking technique do you expose these low spots and high spots. Right here, body filler. Again, this is not a judgment, this is an observation. A little bit of body filler. This truck is a 93, 94, 11 of 93, so it's a 94. It's a little long in the tooth. It's had the opportunity to be used like a truck. So there's body filler on it. So what? I don't care. I just want to smooth it out. So I can even feel this with my hand. Again, bare steel, low spot right there. I'm probably going to be using some body filler on this. However, can I put enough high build on there to fill that in? Sure I can. Look at that. I can stack that stuff up. But I might give myself a little bit of a head start and wipe that a little bit with filler. This is my stop sign. I know I'm talking, I'm going to keep more working and less talking. I'm telling about stuff that is important. This is your stop sign. If I continue to sand this, then I'm going to lose that objectivity and I'm going to lose the lesson here on where to put my filler. So, as we continue down here, it's just showing me a little bit of lumpy stuff. I've hit metal there. It's fine. I might wipe this whole zone with a glaze and block it and then get it ready. But I'm certainly going to put some body filler right in there. I'm not going to grind it down to metal and use the stud gun and get it out like that. That is fine for filler. You're also going to notice, Kevin, you didn't sand the coves in here. Kevin, you haven't sanded the wheel flare. I've intentionally stayed off of the wheel flare. In fact, I even came down here, and this little flange right here, this little flat area right here, I sanded a bit of that. And guess what? I hit bottom there, and I've still got a low spot there, and I've still got some low spots there. What I'm doing is treating each flat section like its own zone, like its own little zip code. The big flats with the big block. Here, I'll use a smaller block. Still a long one and still a flat one, but I'm not just sanding across everything. You know what I mean? I'm doing pieces at a time. So with this area here, I'm pretty certain that I've blocked this out and it's pretty straight, with the exception of this area right here. Now, obviously, we've got shiny paint there, and I found bare metal right here. And that's nothing to do with anybody that's ever been here before. It has everything to do with the way these panels are stamped. The stamping is pressurized here at the end, and it bulges out just a little bit. The opportunity I have to make a super flat paint job is to block this as best I can, and then, if I put 3 coats of a high build primer filler on here, my polyester primer filler. Each coat is going to have about 2 mils, maybe 2.5 mils. That's a lot of material. I can build this up to where the next time I block it, now we're not going to have a low spot here. That's the power of that material. So I just wanted to break it down into sections. And for me, the inspection process is super important. I have to see what I'm doing. That's why this process takes so long. That's why, one of the reasons it's so expensive to do show cars and to do vehicles that appear to be perfect. The other reason is that I can go a bit at a time and I can keep track of my progress as I do my individual zones. So I'm just going to say the big flat is done. I've got a little work to do here to get this flat done. I'm going to block up here a little bit more and get that flat done. And then I'm going to come into my little flange right here, get that flat done, and I'm going to come back with a smaller block yet, because this is a complex shape. I want to be able to roll over that, cross block it, and stay within here while I'm blocking that and not trying to influence what I've already made flat on the other side of it. So, are we done? No. There may have been 1 or 2 comments about me using manual tools instead of power tools. I've got my sander set up right over there. It's a big honking machine. It gets the work done super fast. Not the right tool for this. Manual tools sacrifice speed, but they buy you back control. And that's literally what this is about. I want to control this process. If I just buzz it down with a sander, you get what you get. You get abrasion, but you lose control. So that's the big takeaway. Some takeaway for you. That's the big takeaway for this process. And that's really the nucleus of what I wanted to show. So I got some more work to do. So buckle up, put your dust mask on, and yeah, keep going. All right, blocked a little more. Let's see what the surface is telling us. On the top here, I've got a bare metal burn through next to a low spot next to body filler. Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. We're going to use a bit of filler there. Same thing here. It's a low spot. That's okay. It's a low spot. This right here, it's a bit of a wave in there. I haven't hit bottom yet, so I'm going to keep on blocking that out. However, this place right here, this is caved in. So I'm going to build this up with filler, then I'll use my primers, and we'll contour that and blend it back in to the rest of the panel. Right here, that's a little too close for comfort. I can feel that's high, that's low, a little bit of filler. That's high, that's low, a little bit of filler. And that should take care of that. There's a little bit of a weirdness here. You'll notice that I haven't blocked over the radiuses. It's kind of because those are the easy parts. They're typically pretty consistent. There's a lot of strength built up into these hard angles, the way they're pressed, and typically they don't distort like a flat will distort. Right here, I blocked into this flat, but not here. I'm reading the surface at this point. I'm not repairing. So down here, I blocked out the middle part with my soft sander, and we've still got some work to do here. That's just in the paint though. That's pretty level and flat. This part down here, kind of the same thing as the other big flats. A little more work to do here. I don't think I have to do any filler until right here. I'm bare metal and then I'm still shiny paint. I think that'll prime out, so I'm going to just do the high build primer on that across here. I'm happy with this, except for that right there. But I believe that will prime out. This, however, is pretty low right there, and I'm down to either a primer or a sealer right there. What I don't want to do is cup it. I don't want to make a hole there. So a little bit of glaze right in there, block it out to the rest of it, then we'll bury it in the super high build, and then we should be good. Right here, same thing. I don't know, man. That's single wall. I want that to look seriously flat. Now, if this is going back OE, these trucks used to have a trim piece that went right across here. Nobody would ever see that, but This is going to be black, and we will see it. Like I said before this, I will high build prime this off of the vehicle, and of course, when all this is done, the bed's going to be off it also. There's one more way to read your surface. Actually, there's two more ways to read your surface, and we're going to talk about both of them right now. The first one is with dry guide coat. So the reason I know this is low and this is high is because of the contrast. White sanding dust, black paint. So it's because of contrast. Contrast is a surface analysis tool. Right here, we're out of contrast. Everything's sanded. So what we're going to do is put the contrast back in the form of guide coat. This is a powdered guide coat. If you watched me and Derek paint that F100 that he gave away, we talked about this at the filler stage as well as the primer stage. It was just a nice surface analysis tool. So what happens, we put the guide coat back on there. And as I block, I can see where I blocked. I'm getting a little crazy right there. What that allows me to do is to stay flat, but also respect this curve right here. See how I'm able to recreate that? So right there, I've blocked this part, I've left that alone, and I've left this alone. So now when I want to come back in here, I can guide coat again. Now I can hit the flat. See how it shows up to me? I've got a nice crisp line right there, and I can see that it's crisp because of my powdered graphite, powdered guide coat. It's a beautiful tool. Again, if I want to flatten this out right here, I can block into those areas, respect the contour, and continue to improve the shape. Except for in this case, and I'm kind of all over the place, but you see my point. It's another way to be able to read the surface. If we can't read the surface, we don't know what it looks like, and it might just be looking shiny, and that's fine. That's okay. But if we want it flat and shiny, then you got to know what's happening. So here's another way. This is a pre-cleaner. This is a wax and grease remover. It's a standard fare in auto body shops, and it's a solvent pre-clean for the painting process. So the way this works is that you get it wet and you wipe it off. But look what happens when I don't wipe it off. It's like a temporary clear coat. So here, let's do this. It's got a lot of tail solvent in it. So what that allows me to do, look at the reflection of the back wall there. So now I can look at the reflection just like it would look if there was a clear coat on it. And when I look at this place here, come on, where is it? Oh yeah, now I found a light. Look at that. Oh baby, yeah. You can tell right there that it's low, right? And look how long that wax and grease remover stays wet. When you're properly using this stuff, you spray it on and you wipe it off quickly in one direction. You don't ever want it to evaporate on the surface. But we're not there yet, baby. We are still in surface creation mode. So it's fine to use this as a tool. The one thing I will say is that because it stays wet for a really long time, before you put any filler or primer on it, let it dry. half an hour, an hour. Blow it dry with compressed air. You're not going to stir up any dust. You've just wiped it all off. But don't prime or do body filler over top of your wax and grease remover. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish the process here and take a look and see what my reflection tells me. What I'm looking for is ripples and waves, the same way I was looking for ripples and waves when I marked it all with my Sharpie. I still see some anomalies, some little weird stuff, but this gives me a really good idea that my blocking with 180 on the paint got me pretty dang flat. And it just sort of affirms that I'm on the right track here. Again, we'll let this dry off real good and probably prep this place for filler. So I'm a big fan of doing things in stages and steps. So part of me wants a win here, and part of me wants to prep this, put some filler on there, and get this one spot straight. But this truck isn't about one spot. There's 7 other large panels on this truck. So what I'm going to do after I hydrate is just work my way around the truck. I can do this. This is probably a weekend's worth of work. We'll block this out. I know I'm not covering anything up. I know what to do. I know what's low, what's high, where my filler is going to be. And I've got my other indicators here of all the places that I saw when I did an inspection in 2 or 3 different light sources. A couple little pop knots here. I know what to do. This is low, kind of like it was low on that bedside, so I know I'm probably going to have to do some filler work here. My hood is gapped nicely now, so I can cross block over those seams. Hood's in great shape. There's a little bit of a low spot right there. How do I know? Because I marked it. And then I'll just work my way around this silly thing. And once I get to the point where every panel's like the bedside on the driver's side, now I can go back and do the filler stage. And then I can knock all of that out. And I can make a big batch, and I can go over a bunch of these spots, and we'll cover that. I'll take you along with us, but for now, I've got a lot more work to do, and we've got to get this all in the same condition so we can move on to the next step. Does that sound like fun? It's kind of therapeutic. I wouldn't call it fun, but it's kind of fun. I just saw a huge dent right here. Oh no. Anyway, oh wait, there's another low spot here.